Hey, what's up? Ian here, and today I'd like to talk about this Joyodio VZ10. It is 1DD plus 4BA IEM, and on top of that, it comes with 8 different switches. And the retail price for this is $79 US. So if you guys are interested, do check out the unaffiliated link in the description below. Now in this video, I'm going to go through the accessories, design, build quality, fit and comfort, my sound impression, and then I'll conclude if this is worth $79 US or not. This video will have time chapters, so if you are interested in a particular chapter, please feel free to skip to that area. So let's first start off with the specifications, which is at the back of this box. The frequency is 20 to 40,000 Hertz. Impedance is 12 to 32 ohms. It depends on where the position of the switch is. And then the sensitivity is 108. My one doesn't come with mic, so there's another version that comes with mic. Okay, now in terms of accessories, it comes in a very nice box. All right, this is a very presentable box, and inside you'll find user guide, a tuning switch tool. All right, this tool here is basically a SIM card ejection tool. You get a carrying case, right? So this case here is quite similar to, I think it's Dunu. Yeah, Dunu does provide this case as well, so very similar kind of case. And then you got a whole bunch of ear tips and also foam tips. The ear tips here, you have the spiral ear tips, very typical of KZ. And then you have your pancake style type of ear tip. This is the flat type of ear tip. It's not a very tall ear tip. The dome is a little bit on the shorter side, but it's got a very wide bore, so this is more for treble. Okay, so both of them is actually pretty wide bore. The only one that has, good isolation, I would say, is this foam tip here. So yeah, if you like isolation, you like to cut yourself from the ambience, this is the foam tip to use. Okay, and then you have your upgraded cable, some sort of upgraded cable, KZ upgraded cable, and it's I think it's 8-core braided cable. Yeah, it is. Comes with a straight type 3.5 headphone jack, and it's got a Y splitter here, and the ear hooks are pretty nice and soft. Okay, yeah, pretty nice cable. In fact, it's functional. I mean, it looks cheap, but it's upgraded cable as compared to KZ's standard cable. As you can see, this is the KZ's standard cable. So yeah, you get a quality cable at this price, which is $80, which is cheaper than the AS24. Okay, so that's the accessories. Let me just put them one side. Alright, so this is the VZ10, and the faceplate looks quite unique, right? And it's got some grills going on here, and yeah, it's not open back. Don't be deceived by this grill. But yeah, it's nice, a nice design. Okay, and then on the top here, you get the tuning switches. As I mentioned, you have the main panel, which is on top here, and then you have your auxiliary panel, which is on the side here, which I'll talk about later. Okay, and then on the inner shell, you will get I think standard resin, very flat inner shell. Okay, and the nozzle is quite broad, right? Quite a wide nozzle with paper filter. So overall design is quite unique, right? And in terms of fit and comfort, fits my ear very well. Not very well. I mean, it does jut out. It's quite big, right? Just does come out from my ear. In fact, the fit and comfort is quite similar to the AS24. But if you take a look at the AS24, it's actually thicker than the VZ10. Okay, so yeah, it's actually quite okay. I mean, it's quite thick, but it does come out a little bit from my ear, but it does go in quite well into my ear because the nozzle is quite long. Okay, it goes into my ear and does come out a little bit. Now in terms of comfort, it's quite comfortable. Alright, it's quite comfortable. It does not give me any pain, especially if I'm using the foam tips. Yeah, it doesn't give me, I mean, the foam tips is a bit uncomfortable. That's the reason why I always use silicone tips. But because the foam tips, they do expand and they do push my inner ear and the ear canal, so it's a little bit uncomfortable for me, but that's just my ears, okay? But in terms of comfort, not the most comfortable with the foam tips, and yeah, it's quite fatiguing at times. But if I were to change to my silicone ear tips, my CP145s, very comfortable, and with that I can wear these earphones the whole day with no discomfort. And in terms of seal, gives me a pretty good seal, especially with the foam tips. But with my CP145, yeah, it's also actually a pretty good seal as well as compared to this foam tips, right? So let's now talk about sound. In terms of drivability, these are pretty easy to drive, very easy to drive. In fact, I used it with my iPhone, iPad, and my DAP and dongles, and I listened to this at about 50%. So yeah, pretty standard drivability on this, no issues driving it. In terms of gear matching, the gears that I would recommend is the Questal M15. Okay, this it depends on what switch you have on, but if it's on a default position, that means it's all not on, then yeah, M15 would be a good match for it. I mean, you can go with FC6, but for this you need to change the tuning switch, bump up the bass a bit to make it a bit more warm and a bit more fun. Okay, but this tuning right here is, I would say, more of a clinical tuning. Well, not so fun. The bass is not very fun bass. Okay, so yeah, so this M15 is quite suitable for it. And then for DAPs, I would say the Xiangling M0 Pro. This is a very good DAP for this earphone. It brings out the clarity of the earphone. And with this dynamic driver, it's a little bit more rounded in terms of resolution. So this M0 Pro will give it a bit more sharpness, a bit more edginess to the track that you listen to. Okay, so that's for the players and the dongles that I would recommend with this. Now let's talk about the tone and timbre for this. The tone and timbre for this is a bit on the dry and lean, and well, I would say a little bit analytical side to it. It's not for bass heads, and the note weight is a little bit on the lighter side. So yeah, it's not a fun or musical type of listening experience on this. This is more for analytical listening, more critical listening. Okay, as for technicalities, this has got one dynamic driver and 4 balance armatures. So in terms of price to performance, very good performing IEM at $79. In terms of the soundstage, is pretty okay, pretty average soundstage. It's actually quite similar to the AS24, which is very wide to the sides, but it's not a holistic type of soundstage for that matter. I mean, it's quite a big room, but it's not a very big room, right? It's a pretty normal size. In terms of the sound separation and imaging, is very good. It's not as good as the AS24, but I would say imaging is just on par, yeah, maybe on par with the AS24. But the sound separation, it is not as clear and distinct as the AS24. I would say this is okay. I mean, it's above average in terms of sound separation and the clarity and the imaging of the sound. In terms of detailed retrieval as well, it depends on the tuning switch. If it's at default is actually very clear. The nuances can be picked up on this, and it's pretty good for detail retrieval. In terms of resolution, is above average. It's not as resolving as the AS24, but it's more rounded, I would say. The edges are rounded than the AS24, but is above average in terms of resolution. Right, so now let's talk about the tuning switches. Alright, so basically tuning switches, you have a lot of options here, a lot of combinations. Let me just show you the graph. Okay, so for the main switch, right, so if you were to flick the number 1 switch up, that will overall increase the sensitivity of the sound. All right, that will increase it by 2 dB. Okay, and for the rest of the switches like number 2, number 3, and number 4, progressively as you increase it, you will increase the bass. Okay, so in order to increase the bass for this and at a different level, you switch it one by one to see at which level you want the bass to be, and then you can settle at that when you're happy with that sound. Okay, so that's for the main switch. As for the auxiliary switch, which is on the side here, okay, this one right here, that will adjust the mids. Okay, so number 1 switch will push up the mids from 500 Hertz to 2000 Hertz. Okay, that will push it up, give it a bit more clarity, a bit more presence for the instruments and vocals. And for switch number 2, 3, and 4, that will progressively increase the treble. If you increase number 2, that will increase the treble just by 1 dB, and then it will tilt, so-called tilt, the treble by 1 dB, and then the number 3 will tilt a little bit more, and then to all the 3 switches up, right, is in total increased by 3 dB. Okay, so that's the switches. I mean, the switch does a lot of things, and basically with the different combinations, I mean, there's 256 different permutations, and it will give you 256 different sounds, I would say. Yeah, but the tuning frequency is almost similar throughout. Okay, so that's for the tuning switches. Now let's talk about the sound signature. Let me just show you the graph again. Alright, so this is the graph for the Joyodio VZ10, and it's bass light. Okay, it's not really a V-shaped, it's actually emphasis on the treble here, and what I hear is, well, a very clean sound without the impedance of the bass. I mean, you do get some bass, and the mids are actually pretty clear because not a very present bass, and also a very smooth type of treble. It's not a very bright treble. If you look at here, it's not very bright, but it's a very smooth treble, and it's got a good energy to the treble. So I would say it's not really a V-shaped, but yeah, maybe a U-shaped, a mild U-shaped kind of thing. So now in terms of sub bass, right, so this is actually the basic tuning. I measured it without turning on any switch. So this is what you're going to get. Okay, bass, as I mentioned, it's light, right? It's the rumble is shy. It's a very shy rumble. It's very light rumble. It's very thin also, and very lean rumble. So it doesn't bleed into the mids. It doesn't have that authority as well. Doesn't have that presence. So if you are a bass head, and you definitely want more bass when you listen to this. So that's where the tuning switches comes in, and that will increase the bass a bit more to the level of Harman. Alright, the Harman curve here, but not by a lot more. Okay, so even with all the switches on, you increase the overall impedance of this earphone, make it a little bit louder and with a little bit more bass, but it's not going to be a very bassy IEM. Okay, as for the mids is okay. The thump is there, the impact is there, it's quite present. It's almost to the level of Harman, what people are used to. The impact is slammy, right? It's not splashy, but yeah, it's enough, sufficient type of mid bass. It's a little bit on the lighter note weight, and it sounds pretty okay. It's not a very prominent mid bass. Okay, in terms of your mids, they sound forward. All right, it's got good presence. Instruments, they sound clear, they sound present. The note weight of it is a little bit on the lighter side, not a very natural. It's more neutral type of note weight on the instruments. Pianos and violins and orchestras type of instruments, they sound a little bit on the analytical side. Not a very musical. It's not very warm and fun type of tuning. So when I listen to this, it's very clear. I can hear with no coloration, well, a bit of coloration, I wouldn't say no, with a bit of coloration, I can hear a lot of details and clarity coming out from my instruments. In terms of vocals, I would prefer to listen to female vocals on this. Male vocals, they sound a little bit on the thinner side, a bit shy as well, not authoritative. And in terms of the presentation, I would say they sound correct. Alright, it's not a very colored male vocals, but for female vocals, they've got the energy there, the presence there, the bite to their presence. They sound nice. They sound, I wouldn't say sparkly. They've got good presence lah. Okay, good presence, a bit angelic and smooth as well. They're a little bit on the laid back at the same time, energetic type of presence. And the presence is not very laid back. I would say it's still quite okay. That's making the female vocals stand out a little bit more than the male vocals. Okay, as for treble is actually a pretty smooth treble. I would say smooth and tolerable treble. There's no edginess, there's no harshness or even sibilance on this treble. It's on the laid back type of treble, a bit darkish, but very non-fatiguing listening experience. So it's very suitable for a lot of genres of music, you know, that has got that edginess, like for example J-pop, K-pop, and this will present your track to you in a very nice and listenable level. Okay, you can increase the volume and you will not find that fatigueness in the treble region. But you know, because the bass is not very prominent, you'll definitely want to up the volume to get a bit more bass response. So this is actually, it helps a little bit lah. Okay, so in terms of the presence, okay, as I mentioned, this is not a very present treble. It's not a very bright treble. It's kind of smooth. It's not a very dark treble also. It's just okay. It's just nice. In fact, the overall tonal balance of the treble is quite okay. And presented to me in terms of my cymbal strikes, hi-hats, they're okay. They're just a bit laid back, but sounds a bit unnaturally recessed type of cymbal strikes and hi-hats. Okay, as for the mid trebles, I mean, this dip here makes my cymbal strikes and hi-hats a little bit on the blunt side, and not a very airy. I mean, it rolls off pretty okay, but because of the spike that comes back up to the air here, it's got a bit of air, but it's just that it's a little bit on the laid back and a bit recessed in terms of my cymbal strikes and the hi-hats and the claps and all that. So yeah, when I listen to trance on this or EDMs on this, they sound a little bit dull, I would say. Yeah, but well, heavy metal and rock bands, they sound smooth. Okay, electric guitars, they don't sound as sibilant as some other IEMs that I have, and overall, sounds pretty good on this. Okay, so that's the overall sound signature of the Joyodio VZ10. I would say this is actually pretty smooth sounding and analytical sounding type of IEM. Okay, and the genres that is suitable for this is, well, I would say classical, jazz, female vocals, orchestras, right? They sound pretty good on this, and also pop songs that's like J-pop, K-pop, general pop songs, heavy metal, rock bands. They sound pretty good on this, but for trance and techno, they don't really sound good on this, because for trance and techno, I want a little bit more bass and I want a little bit more treble, but you know, it's a very safe treble if you look at it, and it's also a very shy bass, so not really suitable for trance and techno and EDM. Okay, so that's my overall impression of this Joyodio VZ10. Let me just do a quick comparison with the AS24, just to give you guys an idea. So the AS24 is a pure BA IEM. There's no dynamic driver on this. So in terms of technicalities between these two, because this has got a 7mm dynamic driver, plus 4 balanced armatures. So in terms of technicalities, the AS24 is definitely a better performing IM than the VZ10, but bearing in mind this is $100 and this one is just $80, so different price point. At the same time, the musicality and the tactile dynamism of the IM, I will give it to the VZ10 because it gives me a more rounded, more musical sound as compared to the AS24. AS24 is very analytical as compared to the VZ10. Okay, but in terms of soundstage, they're both about the same, but detail retrieval and imaging and sound separation, AS10 is definitely a little bit better than the VZ10, and also overall resolution, this will be a bit better than the VZ10. But I would say overall musicality and analog feel to it is, I would give it more to the VZ10 as compared to the AS24. AS24, you can hear that it's a little bit of the unnatural tone as compared to the VZ10. Alright, so that's a very quick comparison between this VZ10 and the AS24, and that concludes my overall review and impression of this VZ10. So for $80, if you like more of analytical and a cleaner sound and a more rounded sound as well, and you like to listen to your music in a very analytical way, you like to listen to classical orchestras and all that, this is a very good IEM, and I would recommend to get this. But if you're listening to techno, trance, and those with bass heavy music, and also if you are a treble head and you like a bit more energy to the treble, then I may not recommend this. But overall, if you listen to pop music and in general, and also heavy metal songs, then this is actually a very good recommendation. Okay, right, so that concludes my overall impression and review for this Joyodio VZ10. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and also learned something from this video. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, and also please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Right, so that's it for now. I hope you guys have a great day ahead, and I'll see you again in my next video. Cheers.